Hi, I'm Ikea, and for today's video, I want to ramble on for a little bit about Hollywood and how the global event has changed, a little bit about its explosions and what does affect and doesn't affect them, as I've seen a lot of mistakes in there, some also my own. And we'll go over in the end as well what we can derive from those conclusions that we reach in the end and what build we should actually kind of think about running, perhaps, as I see a lot of builds being suggested to blow these people's ups, and most of them are under either wrong impressions about what does and does not affect the explosion damage, and some of them are just bad choices. And we'll go over why I think that is the case. So yeah, let's jump into doing some of this. And yeah, for those that haven't seen what has happened to Hollywood yet, if you haven't had a chance to play yet, the explosions are humongous. So now if you blow that up and blow that up, that was a territory control done in 2 grenades. And as you may notice as well, I'm back at 4 grenades as well again to go kill the next one. So let's go talk about the damage first. Let's first actually start by discussing the changes that they made to the global event, which has made the way that you play it completely different. It used to be that the effect, the shielding on enemies, would only explode off of them with explosives to begin with. And it was not a large radius, it wasn't a lot of damage, it wasn't the main component of the global event, which it is now. Together with that, they've changed it actually that a jammer pulse or a jammer EMP sticky will detonate it as well. Although, interestingly, for instance, if a warhound explodes and disrupts its allies, our enemies, or if you do it with a blue screen, applying the disrupt, it actually doesn't work, which is interesting. It is actually the damage, the small electric damage that you do with the pulse, which both of those do not have that as part of their as part of the disrupt. That is actually causing the EMP explosion, together with as well shock as well, causing it to explode off of the enemies. And yeah, basically, if you make one explosion happen, that's basically all you need. And with it working with EMP, yeah, using a jammer and just even on a full red build as it is here, you can get the effects that you need, which is just that everybody dies. Together with that, every time you blow up an enemy and kill them in that way, they will drop specialization ammo at your feet. Together with that, especially if you're, for instance, running Demolitionist, which gets its ammo from the... if you have explosions killing multiple enemies. As you saw there, I had 2 extra grenades there. I have a further 2 extra grenades here just from those 4 people. Meaning that, yeah, you get a ton of specialization ammo, especially if you're running Demo. And Demo, of course, is together with that a really easy way to trigger it. But yeah, let's now go into the damage, where we'll go over some parts of yesterday's stream, and I'll go over some of the choices that I made to test out how this actually works. And yeah, let's go into a little bit of a story mode kind of thing, as we'll go over how I reached the conclusions that I'm going to present at the end of it. You can also just jump there if you just want the conclusions. And yeah, that first of all is that we're going to use a VOD from yesterday's stream, as I'm trying to get my finger to actually appear there. But yeah, the streams usually are now on IKEA VODs, as that's where I've been uploading them to. I try to keep them off of the main channel, as they add to the clutter there and will also get recommended, which I'd rather have the main videos just there being recommended. So they get moved over to IKEA VOD's channel, which is also linked in the main channel several places, and usually as well under each stream, as some people have been asking where the VODs go. We're using yesterday's afternoon stream as our little testing, as that's when I did my testing. First off, yeah, as the build may appear there, should look weird, especially since my last video. We're using a ninja bike, and we're using that to get a 2-piece Grupo and 2-piece China, specifically to get the explosive damage bonuses, as that was my first missed impression, as the day before the global event was already available. And once I had started going into groups, I had started using explosive builds, and their damage was significantly higher. At the time, I assumed incorrectly that that was because of the explosive damage. Later on, we'll figure out what that discrepancy is and why its damage was so much higher. But it will be a little bit before we figure that out. So yeah, here I'm trying to go for explosive damage. I also have on the chest glass, as yeah, glass should apply to everything. Any damage that you deal, even explosions from like canisters in the open world and stuff, those should all, glass applies to everything. It is unique in that way. It is unconditional. Any damage that you deal from skills, from status effects, from anything, debuffs, all of it gets increased. And I was trying this out. If we take, and then yeah, I took this into the open world, and one number that kept popping up and up as we'll go and murder this group with that setup. Is that, although I'm wearing a gift backpack here at this point, but one number that kept popping up, as I'll try to find a moment where it is a little bit more legible, which is there, is this, as I have damage numbers on, is the 1,102K 542. We'll truncate that to 1.10 million. That number kept popping up and again and again. Later on, I moved over to messing about, as we'll go over here, with other setups. In this case, I went with having still actually the explosive damages up there. It quickly became apparent that the explosive damages did not apply, as we'll jump to this next point, where I have Grupo active. And I have two pieces of Grupo there with Unbreakable Chest, so without class. And the damage numbers off of this, as we see them popping up actually there, it's hard to make out, but it's a 848 110, so 848K. That 848K will come back again and again, and I'll say here that it's specifically for solo heroic. Both of those things affect it, and that was actually one of the issues I was having. As also another number that you can kind of make out there, although it's kind of hard. I won't find the exact timestamp where we had it, but you see a few 500Ks in there that aren't 800K, as they aren't. And those confused me a little bit because we were getting multiple values. Also, sometimes we were getting really high values into the several millions. And yeah, that made it a little bit confusing. But by just dialing it in more and more, as this was with the two Grupo pieces, for instance here, and without glass, that 848 became the base, basically, for solo heroic. At that point, I started messing about with other setups and going through several different variations, heading in as well into trying it out, as I'm trying to find the moments here, which is trying it out with, in this case, Eclipse. And yeah, just first, actually, as I swapped that out, I think right before this point, is that I have on this character an Eclipse with opportunistic, tried out opportunistic did apply. Now trying it out with having, actually this is the point that I swap it. I'm going from opportunistic over to trying it out with the backpack from Eclipse. As of course, the backpack from Eclipse is 30% to status affected enemies. And as long as I was using, for instance, a jammer pulse, or if they were on fire before I exploded them in some way, that would actually apply to it as well. So now we already have a few of the bonuses that we know will apply to it. Let's jump into the game actually, as we'll continue on in here. And yeah, this build might look a little bit weird, but it's just here to illustrate the point. This is a red Eclipse. In this case, so yeah, we figured out explosive damage doesn't do anything, which is, yeah, core to some of the builds that I've been seeing. At least for the explosion amount that comes off of the enemies, which is kind of the thing that we're gonna go for now, because the global event has changed so significantly that that explosion is actually very important. You can actually even get by without even focusing on it, but my curiosity was piqued into what is the number, what is happening here. And yeah, that 848 base became pretty clear, although there were numbers underneath it which were unclear at this point. Glass did apply to it. Explosives in any amount as well from, for instance, the specialization did not. The status effect did apply to it if you were doing it within a status effect, with, for instance, Eclipse, with the backpack, which of course has that 30% to status affected enemies. And then that led me into we now know basically explosive damage does not apply, glass does, some of the conditional amps do. Then the stats, of course, remain, which is, for instance, in this case, Detox. Detox was quickly tested, and especially with just holding a weapon like an AR, having Detox and DTH, both of those did not apply by swapping out to, for instance, an SMG. We could see that the DTH didn't apply. Swapping out to a weapon that didn't have Detox, Detox didn't apply. DTA did though. So contractors or DTA on the weapon, for instance, holding a shotgun at the time that the explosion happens, all of those things do apply and make for much bigger booms. They are just as amps are amps, and the stats are just additive to each other and then multiplying against that 848 on solo heroic. And then came the hard part of just, okay, why are we getting other numbers? And also, why were my numbers so much higher in a group the day before? So in some simple testing, as going to a 2-man with the exact same build, my numbers went up. And that quickly led to the realization that it's based off of something off of the enemies. In this case, we'll jump to the conclusion of it, which is that it was based on their health amounts. So as their scaling goes up, they seem to have a bigger explosion, and as well, for instance, the rushers, which have, of course, a lot less health, and the snipers as well, which have a lot less health, consistently would give lower numbers than that 848 base, even in solo after going back to solo testing. And that was basically the realization that, it's based off of the enemy's health value. And that's also why elites and stuff would have the same explosion amount as for an elite assault would have the same amount as a veteran assault, as a red assault. And because of that, it was pretty easy to check that. Then I went lower into difficulties, going from heroic to challenging, and then going back to normal. And the values would consistently drop down. And consistent as well with the ratioing for their health that we know. So, by their health amounts that we know from several sources, that went down with the same amount, with the same percentage as the explosion. So at that point, we know the scaling matters, the scaling from difficulty matters, the scaling from amount of players matters. Now, of course, the enemies don't scale up in health consistently with the amount that if the group is 4 people, they don't scale up by 4 times the amount of health and armor. So that is a lot less than that, meaning that actually for this global event, especially for if you want to farm it, doing it solo or in duos is actually preferred, just because the amount of scaling that goes up is much more consistent. Together with that, especially for instance, public executions have many more elites and have many more purples and such than, for instance, a territory control, which is mostly reds and purples with an elite strewn in here and there. Also, with the health scaling, the one enemy type that, of course, has a lot more health than anything else are, bosses, for instance. First of all, of course, they made for much bigger booms and would kill everything around them much more consistently. That's why also actually the waves that spawn with the bosses in missions and stuff get instantly deleted. And same, for instance, for heavies, which would, for instance, in groups where normal enemies would have around an explosion around the 2 million mark for a build like this, or 2.3-ish million for a build like this with both 2 amps on it, plus holding the shotgun. The name or an elite heavy. That's a word I'm looking for. Would blow up for around 5.7 to 6 million-ish range. depending on if the shotgun was held. And yeah, that is of course 6 million. It will kill all of the purples around it, basically, even together with them exploding, of course, themselves as well. So yeah, that's kind of the things to know here. Now let's go to first summarizing again what matters there, and then trying to go into what build would we then align for that. So to kind of bring together what we have learned, let's actually go clear out this this territory control over here. As I miss my shot, of course, but yeah, that will blow up those guys, taking off the shielding. And as you see, these purples are remaining on a little bit of their health. I'm actually gonna heal up here and kill, and yeah, the second wave spawns, and now I'm actually going to use the jammer pulse, and the jammer pulse of course will cause it to have a little bit of a bigger explosion, because I am running that that red eclipse build that I was showing off earlier. And yeah, this is kind of somewhat the higher damages that we can reach. So as we saw there, there were a bunch of 1.3 something millions that we were hitting, which is a lot higher, of course, than that 848 that you hit on just a normal red build on solo heroic. And yeah, this is applying the glass, this is applying the backpack, is giving us, when I'm using the jammer pulse, not when I was using the grenade launcher, it's giving that extra 30%. So that is helping reach that 1.3 million, because otherwise it's 1.1-ish million with just a grenade launcher. Actually, I should have a shield equipped here as well. And one of the things with that is that that's why I have the Elmo equipped, because the Elmo's shock will also instigate an explosion once it gets its shock rounds. But together with, if you have the Shocker Punch, if you have the Shocker Punch and you also have a shield equipped, the shield is also needed for that for that effect, because once you have all three equipped, you can actually melee an enemy. You don't actually have the shield up. You can just melee an enemy and apply shock to him and also nearby enemies. So you can also use that to just blow stuff up, and making this for actually a kind of funky, silly way of getting through this event. If you're looking for something a little bit silly to use during this, as I've quite enjoyed this. But would I recommend this as a good build for this? No, not really. All you need, as I've seen a lot of people going for tip of the spear or still sticking to explosive builds, while explosive builds still work okay, just because the jammer already causes the explosion, they're basically redundant. You really don't need them. What I would use instead is I would just grab a striker as here with Demolitionist. Demolitionist, as we explained, the explosions damage didn't help here, but what does help is that, yeah, we have that extra specialization ammo dropping, because you're getting explosive multiple enemies dying to a single explosion, as the requirement for getting extra specialization ammo pips in that in the little orange specialization bar, meaning that, yeah, there's alongside of just the specialization ammo happening from Hollywood, you're getting on top of that all of this, and it's one of the easiest ways to trigger the initial explosion. You can run a jammer pulse alongside of it, as I'm doing here as well. That will help to initially get it going, as you can just use this just as instant, just delete. Now, on top of that, one thing I would do on instead of just going Elmo as this one, for instance, it's configured for an SMG. So let's actually go grab the Elmo here, and even solo, let's put in here the Coyote. So normally, of course, we would run this with Obliterate. One thing you could do is upgrade to Glass. This Glass, of course, does apply to it, 25% extra. It will kill a few more or weaken enemies a little bit more than generally would happen. And of course, the amount of enemies and such that depends as well, because if all of their explosions are hitting each other as well. So if you have a big group spawning, if you can actually catch the public execution group right when they spawn, you can actually kill all of the elites altogether. It's much more so that sometimes with public executions, especially, they spawn far away, so you can't hit them. With territory controls and stuff, you can actually catch them much more easily. That's why I've been using those mostly. And yeah, importantly, what I feel is getting missed as, yeah, people going tip of the spear, for instance, to get their specialization ammo or weapon up in damage and getting ammo. The ammo is pretty easy. You just use this one once, and yeah, I have more grenades than I could ever use here. I could empty this one out. and blow myself up. Yes, a little bit danger close, but yeah, I have so much ammo here, and I'm still full, basically. Ammo is not a concern, especially if you're demo with this event. So I wouldn't go tip of the spear. On top of that, you don't really want to use the specialization weapon once you've made the explosion happen. What you really want to have is follow-up. Once you've done the initial explosion, there is no buff, there is no debuff on the enemy like with SHT Exposed. There is no buff on yourself like with Golden Bullet or Guardians or Polarity Event. All of those that give a significant buff once you do the thing. Here, after you take the shielding off of people, it's basically back to normal. And back to normal means you still might have some stuff to kill. This is the way to kill them. You want to have the follow-up. You want to have a build that can, once the explosion has happened, cause the explosion in a simple way. And at this point, it's just a jammer pulse. On top of that, if the Elma has shock rounds, you can just initiate it with that. On top of that, you can initiate it with these grenades. Once you use the jammer pulse once, actually, you don't even really need it anymore. You'll have so much explosion grenades lying around for the multi-shot that, yeah, there is no real need for it. So the one thing that you would do is, for instance, here, adding in glass cannon, but also not per se necessary. And that's really all you need. All of this trying to do something special for it is basically the wrong way to go with it, because focusing on that initial explosion, as with, for instance, that Eclipse build I was showing, really doesn't help that much. You need the parts that will remain is more the issue. If once you've done the explosion and 2 elites are still alive, you just need to kill those 2 elites. That's what needs to happen. Although one thing that will help and will work pretty well and will also be a good choice for the opener to most fights is to, for instance, go with an Eclipse with glass chest, as of course a normal Eclipse in that case, I mean. And yeah, in that case, of course, you have the backpack, you have the chest. They can run the EMP, either sticky or with the jammer pulse. They can even be almost set to all skill haste if you really want to go all in on it, just to get that jammer pulse going faster, because the status effect part of it isn't really the thing that you're doing there. And yeah, they can make a big boom happen at the start, and then the rest of the team running strikers can follow up on that. And if they are running their own jammer pulses, just in case they get kind of separated, they can deal with it themselves. Or if they have the demo grenade launcher, or as it doesn't need to be the demo, it doesn't need to be an explosive, by the way. So all of the specialization weapons will cause that shield to blow off of them, including, for instance, yeah, just hitting them with the flamethrower is an easy one. Although the flamethrower has an issue where it doesn't go through door boundaries, of course. The sharpshooter, the TAC 50 can be really good as well. And yeah, basically with this build, as for instance with a group like this, is a guaranteed delete. And then the only thing that will survive is an elite or 2, and he was 2 shots away from death from an unstacked striker. So this is what I would actually recommend. Go striker, maybe go with a glass chest if you're willing, making that explosion a little bit more, and just make the explosion happen, and then clean up what remains. You could also do this, of course, with high-end red, as whatever remains isn't really that well suited anymore for getting stacks off of. So you could go actually a high end, and then you could incorporate contractors for a little bit of bonus damage. You could be running a shotgun main, for instance, just running a Super 90, just to have the DTOC or the DTA active off of it together with that contractors. But also that also kind of seems overkill, because yeah, just running this is kind of fine. I wouldn't per se say there is any need anymore for explosive builds. I wouldn't say there's any need for specific builds, especially tip of the spear. I can see the thinking. The specialization weapon is doing something, so maybe let's put some power into it. The specialization weapon is only igniting the initial hit. That's all it's really doing, and after that, you're much better off with main weapons again. So yeah, that is basically what I wanted to discuss here. Let's go into the final conclusion, where I'll put everything together one last time and sign off from there. And to conclude this video, Let's recap one last time what does affect the explosion off of the enemies. First off, it scales off of their health. That was actually the big confusion factor that took a little while for me to understand where the base damage was basically coming from. It is in line with their health amounts. It isn't specifically their amount of health, but it is based upon that. And that means that, yeah, for instance, rushers and snipers will give much lower values for the explosion if they're hitting other enemies, whereas, for instance, heavies on the other hand of the coin and named bosses will give much higher numbers than the base number. But for general grenadiers, assaulters, and such, the number is all the same, which is that 848 base, 848k base. That is for solo heroic. And of course, that amount changes by the amount of agents in the team, as if you're with a 2-man, 3-man, or 4-man, it scales up. It also scales up with difficulty. For instance, on legendary, the number is much higher as well. And on normal, it's way lower. It is affected by, especially for instance, glass, and in a really simple way as well with Eclipse, the backpack, as especially if you're running a Jammer Pulse or even the Stinger Hive, which will apply bleed as the second that it hits. It will actually work with that as well. But just running with a Jammer Pulse, you can make it trigger together with the status effect bonus. And yeah, opportunistic and all such. True Patriot likely will also apply other bonuses that are just conditional in some way, will likely apply to it as well. But as likely as well, if they're status affected and you have a survivalist in the team and they're providing you the bonus, or if there is a firewall close to an enemy, they will likely also give you a bonus. So there are many ways to fluctuate that number as well. But it's very consistent. If you just add in the multipliers, you will land on the numbers. Together with that, of the stats, DTH, damage to health, DTOC, damage to targets out of cover, do not apply. And then damage to armor does apply, which is consistent with explosions in general and explosives. And yeah, just a Jammer Pulse or EMP Sticky that do the little bit of electronic damage that they do. It can ignite it. Shock can ignite it. And of course, all kinds of explosives can ignite it as well. So in this case, for instance, with a Glass Eclipse, as this one is, that could be a decent choice for one of the players to run in a group, especially because solo, you still need something to kill whatever remains. And that's why I would actually say that this is maybe overkill. I have run this a little bit. It does actually do marvelously at that job of making the initial explosion as big as possible and as high numbers as possible. But yeah, as we discussed earlier, the likely easiest way is just to equip yourself just a strikers with either a sacrifice or a Cheska chest. The sacrifice in this case isn't the worst choice just because it is 5% more, of course. Or you could, of course, just recalibrate this to be glass instead and go with glass. Having the glass bonus here and then having the striker as... What is much more important is that you have a build that can kill whatever remains after you do that initial explosion. And that also actually leads me to that there is actually a place in here, I would say, for the good old-fashioned high ends, as whatever remains is actually usually not much, and there isn't much to stack on for an Eclipse or for a striker build. So actually a high-end glass that has its damage up front is not the worst choice, and I've been enjoying running this. The specialization weapon, in this case, for instance, going minigun or grenade launcher or the firewall's flamethrower, all three are really good choices because also, the minigun, if it hits, it will actually ignite and basically make the explosions happen, even though, of course, it doesn't have explosive component to itself. all of the specialization weapons, including, for instance, as well, the TAC 50, if it hits an enemy, it will make that explosion happen. So you could even have a TAC 50 here. Although I would just pick Demolitionist, especially because you are killing a lot of enemies with explosions. So you do benefit from, from having Demolitionist there. Not for its explosive damage, as that does not apply again. So yeah, explosive damage is basically out. But you do gain more special ammo. Not that you really need it, because you already get plenty of it, especially if you are consistently the one getting kills. Usually, if you are running out of specialization ammo in a group, especially, is more that you're competing for the kills and competing for that initial explosion. So you're not getting it from there sometimes. But actually, a glass red like this, I would run it still likely with just an Elmo, even if you're going over crit chance, because that's likely a thing that will happen if you're running Elmo on a high-end build. But what you do get is, yeah, an upfront damage. And all you really need here is the Jammer Pulse, really, to get it going. It's just that the cooldown of this is a little bit too long, so you want to have a secondary tool, that's the minigun in this case, or a grenade launcher. And yeah, you can just make explosions happen. And especially, yeah, the explosive damage does not apply. And honestly, as I see, as I've been inundated with DMs of like, hey, is this a good idea for this global event with tip of the spear builds? I really wouldn't. The specialization, the thing that you get from tip of the spear is a little bit more specialization weapon damage. I'm not using the specialization weapon after that first shot. After the, well, unless they get their, unless the fight takes so long that they get their shields back, then I'm using it again. But the specialization weapon is not that useful in this case, and speccing for it shows to me, especially as I've seen it from, of course, all of the, yeah, all of the general, you know, all of the general suspects that would do such things and really make all capital videos titles. Just don't. Just, yeah, it's a bad idea. Have glass as in there. That helps a little bit. If you're going Eclipse, go glass Eclipse for this time, and just run EMP Jammer, and you will basically be the initial person to make the explosions happen. But for the rest of it, just run something that can still kill. And well, mortar builds as well still work okay with this. They're basically no longer needed, because the thing was that the initial explosions weren't as large of a radius as they are now. So you would sometimes need to, if there were two waves on each side of the room, if you were mortaring this wave, then that wave would get their shields removed. These guys would then need a follow-up shot. So something like a mortar that made sense. Now, if you're hitting these guys with one grenade or EMP, you're hitting everybody. It's such a wide field. That has completely changed the balance and the dynamic of this global event. And I felt that, yeah, this might be an interesting way of talking about it. So yeah, I hope you enjoyed. I hope my rambling wasn't too rambly, even though it, of course, was, as always. And yeah, if you enjoyed this video, if you're willing to help out, if you can do all of the algorithm stuffs, I'm sure you know what they are as well. So if you can help out, and my upcoming videos will, of course, as PTS is coming, as for those that missed the news, we're going to have a PTS over this upcoming weekend, for starting on Friday the 26th of this of April of this month. So yeah, we'll likely, the next videos, although I will try to sneak in a build overview in here, the next one will likely be my thoughts on that PTS for TU21, as that's upcoming. So yeah, thank you for joining, and as always, have a good night.